bus turned, I started to pass out, and I like starfished and like flopped on top of this tiny old lady. Why, hello. What did I just hit? My name's Quinn, and I have a disability that makes me pass out occasionally, and I have a few funny stories that I wanted to share. And I'm using the word funny loosely because they're really funny to me. I don't know if they're gonna be funny to you, though. Despite having 40 minutes of footage to get through, I did not once mention in this video what my disability actually is. My current big diagnosis is a type of autoimmune basal ganglia encephalitis called PANS. PANS stands for Pediatric Acute Onset Neuropsychiatric Syndrome, but I don't think that that's fully accurate, which is why I normally just say that I have autoimmune BGE, because it's like the broader term. So basically, my immune system is attacking my brain instead of what it's supposed to be doing, which, as you can imagine, causes a lot of problems because the brain controls a lot in your body. And one of the symptoms that I struggle with is passing out, aka syncope. I experience pre-syncope on a daily basis, the actual syncope not as much. I could talk for literally hours about the complexities of my disability, but all you need to know for this video is that sometimes I pass out. Okay, moving on. So my most dramatic passing out story occurred in 2nd grade. My teacher called me to the back of the room to talk with me about something, don't remember what, and I wasn't paying attention because all I could see was the room spinning. I think before that I had smelled something funny. And then the next thing I know, I'm waking up in the principal's office with an ice pack. My first thought was, what did I do? I was so concerned with having done something wrong. I saw my mother like outside of the office, like through the window, and she had the most worried look on her face I've ever seen. And I was worried too, because once again, I thought I had gotten in trouble for something and I could not remember what. And then they told me I fainted, and I don't think that I would have known what that meant, so they probably had to explain that to me. And I was confused about the ice, and they're like, well, you hit your head on the way down, and I don't think I understood that either. I mean, I was 7, so I don't really think you can blame me for that. It also sounds like it could have been a concussion, which means I might have actually had 5 concussions instead of 4. But I don't know. My teacher was always a funny guy, so he kind of tried to make my passing out funny to me, and he was like, it looked like you sat down in a chair and then you flopped on your back. I don't think he called it a dead bug, but to me in my head, it was always, I flopped on my back like a dead bug. But I also remember being really embarrassed by the way he described it though. So I was not graceful as I fell over. And something I did not realize until adulthood, that if I don't remember getting to the office, there's only 2 ways I could have gotten there. Firstly, I might have been conscious as they walked me to the office, and then I just immediately forgot having done that. Or I wasn't conscious, and I was carried to the office. And there's just something about the image of a teacher carrying this limp child through the halls of a school that makes me go, they aren't paid enough for this. So because we live in Canada, I was brought to the hospital to get an EEG and an MRI. And what they didn't tell me until later is that they were actually mainly checking me for epilepsy, because what I had likely experienced was a drop seizure, and the fact that I had smelled something funny was like an indicator that it could have been epilepsy, but it was not epilepsy. And in the car ride home from the 2-day hospital visit, I turned to my mother and said, I think it was my teacher's breath. And she just looks at me like, man, okay. My naive child self thought that my teacher's breath was so bad that it made me pass out. I took one whiff and was on the floor like... Okay, so backtracking a bit, at the hospital, I don't have much memory from these events, to be completely honest, which makes me think that I might have subconsciously repressed a lot of it, because I have always been a very anxious person, especially in new places, so it's hard to believe that I would be keeping it together, and yet I don't remember being like scared. So I must have blocked that out somehow, which is working out great for me, for once my bad memory's actually serving me, so thank you, brain. Did good this time. Do the rest good now. When I think about the actual moment though, it's like, I was a small child lying on a table, and there was at least 2 doctors in that room putting wires everywhere on me and moving me around. And that's gotta be pretty terrifying. For anybody, not just a child. I remember there being a TV show playing in the corner that I didn't recognize, and I think my hands were across my chest at some point, but I don't really have a lot of memory from the EEG for some reason. I also think I was half naked. Like, I think that I had some kind of gown on, because how else would they be getting wires across me? I don't know. The MRI is actually a really surreal memory for me, because when I think about like TV dramas and like shows, like medical shows, if they show an MRI happening, people tend to be talking in the machine, like they're having a full-on conversation, and that was not the case for me. Like, I was told, don't move, like, at all. And I even was twitching my leg at some point near the end, like the very end of this MRI, and they noticed it, and they told me that, you know, Quinn was moving a little bit, you know, so the results may not be that good. And like, I was barely moving, like very little bit. Also, on screen they depict MRIs actually not lasting very long, but mine was 45 minutes. And I know this because they played a movie and we got halfway through. Specifically, it was Barbie, Princess and the Pauper. And now looking back, that might be why I have no reason for disliking it, but I do. I couldn't really hear it either, because they put these goggles on me. They were like these, like almost like VR, except really blurry. So I couldn't really see what was going on, and I could barely hear it because the machine was like really loud. And like, MRIs in the movies look quite small. Like, it's just like you are in a tube that's like kind of, you know, like, you'd be if you're claustrophobic, that would be an issue. But I remember it being like pretty big. Like, I felt very small being in that tube. It felt like a sci-fi movie. I wasn't too off-put. It was not that scary to me, or at least I don't remember it being scary. Although logically I would have been on the verge of a panic attack. And it was a big task asking a kid with OCD and some mild tics. My tics are like more severe now, but they were quite mild at the time. To sit still, lie still for 45 minutes. And I was taken out for dinner at the end of this whole ordeal, and I remember thinking that it wasn't that bad of a time because I got food after. So despite that being such like a significant moment in my life, it somehow just didn't stick in my brain that maybe there might be something wrong with me, because the next time that I started feeling like I was gonna pass out, it didn't occur to me that this had happened before. I was in 4th grade-ish. I was at some kind of like, I think a summer camp. I remember feeling like I was gonna pass out, but not fully understanding what that feeling was at the time. Like, my vision was starting to go. I felt like really sick. I remember going to grab my backpack because my water bottle was attached to it, and I'm like, water will fix this. Water fixes everything. It was like a canteen, like it wasn't like a sip one, like you had to unscrew the cap in order to drink from it. And I couldn't get it off of the hook that was attached to my backpack. And I felt so ridiculous directly after this, because it occurred to me that I could have just unscrewed it and I could drink from it. I didn't have to unhook it first. Anyway, I didn't know how to tell anyone that something was wrong, so I just kind of sat back at my desk because we were doing some kind of art. And what I remember is putting my hand on the desk and leaning over for a second, and then coming back up, and then everyone's staring at me. But what had actually happened is I put my hand on the desk, I leaned over, my eyes never closed, but people were asking me what was wrong, and I didn't respond for 10 seconds. I was just hanging there, unconscious, and then sat back up with no memory of what had just happened. I think that that's really funny in hindsight. It was scary for everyone involved, including me, but you know, it's funny. It's funny. You can laugh. It's funny. Whoever was like watching us was like, yeah, that's not good, but my mother couldn't come to pick me up. I don't remember being that phased. I was just kind of confused. I was placed on a couch, except I wasn't allowed to put my feet up on the couch, which didn't make sense because we were in like a garage. Like, why do you care about your couch if the couch is in a garage? This was not a regular summer camp, by the way. This was not like Like, when you live out in a rural area, the summer camps are kind of just run out of people's garages. Like, I don't know how to explain that. In 5th grade, it was French class. I was just like hitting my hand against the desk. I went to my teacher and was like, yeah, can I go to the office because my hand hurts and I'd like to get some ice. And she's like, are you okay? Because you look kind of pale. Then suddenly it all hit me and I went, I think I'm gonna faint. She grabs me by the shoulders and throws me in a chair. And of course, the entire class turns their head and was like, what's happening? This teacher was so concerned. My classmates start asking me a whole bunch of questions to figure out what's going on, and I am kind of panicking because I don't know what's going on. I think I was taken to the doctor later because, of course, that's a little bit concerning that I felt like I was gonna pass out. Doctor didn't have an explanation. He was like, low iron. Because, you know, you're borderline anemic. In 7th grade, I was attending some kind of like singing performance at an old age home, and I remember smelling burnt toast as we walked in. And then we were singing for a while, and I was right next to a stack of chairs. This was not a very professional performance, and I knew I wasn't allowed to sit down, but I kept trying to sit down to see if I would feel better because I felt really bad, and at some point I couldn't take it anymore. And keep in mind that I am the kind of person that would rather suffer in silence than disturb somebody. So the fact that I actually made the conscious decision to walk down the aisle of our audience to my teacher to be like, something's wrong. Something was wrong. I was apparently like really pale, and I don't remember saying much. Just my teacher kind of grabbed my arms and was like, oh my god, because something was clearly not okay with me. I think my vision went at this point because I don't remember walking. We were in this room and I was, I think, sitting on the floor kind of in my not in my teacher's lap, but she had her arm like underneath of me so that I wouldn't be on the floor fully. Not that that really helped anything. My head snapped back and I have no idea how long I was unconscious for, but at some point I remember going, I'm awake. Oh, my poor mother had to come rescue me. Oh my goodness. Oh, and do you remember how I said I smelled burnt toast as I walked in? Well, I told that to my mother and immediately the alarm bells were ringing in her head. But there was actual burnt toast. So other people could smell it too. My poor mother. Maybe the reason I'm not having the anxiety attacks is because she's having them. Sorry. The next time it happened was actually at my sport. Generally, I did not experience fainting while at the pool because I was in the water. But we also had dry land stuff, and we did spend a lot of it on the ground, but sometimes we did standing up stuff, which was harder for me. Or occasionally we'd do something which is dangerous to everyone, but dangerous to me in particular. We were doing this thing where we were leaning against the wall with just our head touching the wall and like sticking our chest out to like kind of prepare some kind of muscle in our neck, which is arguably not a safe thing to be doing, but yeah, I started to feel really not okay. Like I felt like really nauseous and like really dizzy. Looked at my coach and was like, I don't feel so good. Can I sit down? She let me sit down because apparently I was like ghost white. Like I was really pale. I think she asked if I was gonna throw up. And I was like, no, I don't think so. But now that you put that in my head, maybe. And I did end up going to the bathroom worried that I was going to puke. I did not. But as soon as I saw the toilet, for whatever reason, I went, oh wait, I remember what I have to do. And I lied down and I felt better. And it was at that moment where I was like, oh, this solution is not to panic. It's to take a nap. Not literally, it's, I don't nap. I just have to lie down to get the blood back in my brain. I know that this is not what fainting actually is, but like the way that I like to explain it to myself is that fainting is the body's way of getting your brain down on the floor so that the blood goes back to your head. So if you don't lie down first, your body will do it for you. That's why you have to lie down. And then I was like training fine for the rest of the day. We trained at like a public facility where there was like a giant hill, which was kind of like a mini ski hill. Anyway, we were running around this mountain thing. We went around like 3 times, which it was like 10 or 15 kilometers, or maybe just 5. It was 5 kilometers. Quinn, what? I don't do math. Anyway, this is a lot for someone who can't be upright for very long. Then it got worse because we started going up and down this mountain. We had to go up and down 10 times, but I only made it up about 7 before I'm like, uh-oh. As I'm going down the hill, I'm like, I'm gonna pass out. This is not good. But instead of staying down there and being like, hey, I think I'm gonna pass out to my coaches, I was like, if I say it while I'm down at the bottom of the hill, they're gonna get mad at me, they're gonna think that I'm lying, so I better go up the hill one more time. The logic was not there. So I ran up the hill for the 8th time, and I got to the top of the hill, sat down, and this poor kid who was new, this person didn't know what was going on, like they hadn't witnessed this happen before. I was like, can you go get my coach? Because I feel like I'm gonna pass out. My vision's not here. And I was told that my coach ran up the hill. And she was not happy about it. She gets to the top of the hill, the first thing she says to me is, you couldn't have done that at the bottom? And then my coach made me take off my pants and walk down the hill the long way, which was less steep. I had a bathing suit on underneath, but that's not much different from underwear. So anyway, I was wearing socks and shoes and a shirt, but no pants. And that's the way that I had to walk down all the way back to the facilities. The logic behind this was that I was overheating, so that's why I was told to take off my pants. Anyway. And then I was fine. Once I started feeling better, I was fine. I remember being in the showers after practice once my vision started to go, and I very calmly turned off the faucet, and then I somehow, without any vision, somehow had the muscle memory to get myself to the change room. And I lied down next to a stall. A teammate comes up to me, he's like, do you want a pillow? And I'm like, no. And in my head I was like, where are you getting a pillow? There was only one time that I had ever felt pre-syncope well in the water, and it was because we were doing a set, I think we called them hypoxia sets. The point of these sets, it was lengths of like underwater laps. The point of them was to develop our lung capacity, and the fact that they were called hypoxia sets is like kind of concerning. We were children. But anyway, the lack of oxygen must have been getting to me because I was like, something ain't right here. And I look up to the coach that was kind of overseeing this and was like, I have a tendency to faint and I can feel an episode coming on right now. And she's like, self-diagnosing, are we? All right, go do backstroke. I mean, I don't know about you, but if I was a coach and a swimmer just told me that they might pass out, I would make them get out of the pool immediately. Like, I don't think you want me passing out well in the water because you'll have to get me and you're wearing shoes. I don't think you want to go in the water. But I didn't argue. I just did backstroke. I was taking the bus to campus and I wasn't holding on to like the pole very well. So the bus turned, I started to pass out, and I like starfished and like flopped on top of this tiny old lady. I felt so bad. By the time that I came to, because I think it was very quick that I like came back, I was like, oh my god, I'm so sorry. And she was more concerned about me than I was about her, but I'm like, oh my gosh, I just fainted on top of somebody, what the heck? And I think that was my most embarrassing one, to be honest, because it involved, like, I could have hurt someone, and now I understand that I need to be sitting down on the bus. I got like maybe 5 steps off the bus and I just kind of lied down on the street, and my friends were like, okay, are you good? I told them to go to class and they're like, we're not leaving you here. You might get run over by a bike. No. There was also an incident where I was on the floor, just kind of like preventing passing out. I was kind of shaking. I think I might also have been having tics. I wasn't well. Prof walks by and is like, and then turns to my friend like, is he good? And my friend's like, yeah, no, he's just having a moment. He's just having a moment. Yeah, I hope he didn't think I was being disrespectful. And after that particular incident, I started going to all my profs being like, just so you know, I might put my head down on the desk. I might lie down. I'm not napping in the middle of your class. I'm just trying not to pass out. I also tell them about my tics because I move my eyes a lot and I don't want them to think I'm rolling my eyes at them. Or I also have like a shaking head tic and like, I don't want them to think I'm disagreeing with them. Anyway. Yeah. Fainting can be funny. Obviously not in the moment, but in hindsight. That's all I have to say, so goodbye.